challenges you to think differently, and I think that's a great way, and you even think differently about your own culture through that lens, and I think that is what has happened to me that's a driving force for me to continue. I have gone 4 times. It was spread out throughout a 33-year history, so it wasn't right after another, but I do think the experience of learning from others is really what has drove me.
Hey there, I'm Steve Loflin, and that was Dr. Lisa Bardill Moscaritolo describing the experience of traveling the world while learning from it at the same time. She's talking about Semester at Sea, a program that takes students around the globe to study across multiple countries in a single semester. Today's episode is all about the power of international education. Different types, too, like studying abroad, taking a gap year, or participating in global leadership programs. All of these experiences can completely change the way you see the world, your education, and even your future career. Lisa has spent much of her career helping students access these kinds of global opportunities. We talk about how international experiences challenge you to think differently and why they can be such a powerful differentiator for students. Plus, Lisa shares some actionable tips about how to actually find and pursue these opportunities. So now, let's get some scholar scoop from Dr. Lisa. It only made sense that we would get to meet, but I think Semester at Sea was kind of the first thing that came along that we both really had something in common. And I know you just got back from
Yes.
serving on Semester at Sea for your fourth time. Um, so what about, and we can talk about Semester at Sea specifically, but
Mhm.
what in your mind is so important about students considering or thinking about an international part of their college experience? What comes to mind for you along those lines?
Mhm. Well, so much, but I think too is one is about the experience, to have an opportunity to, for example, with Semester at Sea, it's a global comparative experience. You're going to many different countries and you're on a floating university. So you're learning, you're with different people, you're meeting a lot of other people, but it's about the experience that I think sets you apart, possibly. And for you to think about um, your why you're doing that. And I do think that that's important, that you can then share it later on, on why you chose to do that experience. But I think for me, the driving force was always to learn. At first was about learn about other places, right? I
Hmm.
want to go and travel, and some of your audience might feel the same way. So a great way to do that is to go abroad, and I agree. I think it does. I mean, if you could do it financially, and I didn't have that luxury as a first generation college student, but then later on, opening the doors like after grad school and hearing about these opportunities and understanding that I could work on the ship. And that's how I've always gone. But however, I do push, and what you just said, Steve, I do suggest to students they do find a way to go abroad, even if it's a short term. That's
Hmm.
always been something as a college administrator or as a leader in higher education and working with students, is if they can find a way, is to do it. Even if it's about the experience, and it's about how it it also challenges you.
Hmm.
It challenges you to think differently, and I think that's a great way, and you even think differently about your own culture through that lens, and I think that is what has happened to me that's a driving force for me to continue. As you said, I have gone 4 times. It was spread out throughout a 33-year history, so it wasn't right after another,
Right.
but I do think the experience of learning from others is really what is drove me, whether it's from the place I go to or whether it's who I'm with as well, like I said, on a floating university or in a smaller program. And so I've always tried to encourage students to have those experiences as much as possible, because I think also it allows you to grow in different ways, and then you could share how you grew when you're looking for a career or how you're moving forward. So I guess for me, if I'd say it's the experience and think about what the experience is, it's learning and growth.
Well, I think similar to you, before I was on the semester at sea program as a staff member, I had not done a significant
Yeah.
amount of international travel at all. And so when I looked at that, it was like kind of like the Whitman sampler of the world. It's like, oh, I'm going to get on this boat and I'm going to have the opportunity to go to 11 countries, right? And so I get a little taste of
Yeah.
all of them, but it's not really an immersion program. And sometimes I hear people talk about it like when you look at what you might want to do if you do kind of an international education
Mhm.
experience, is do you want it to be somewhat of an immersion or do you want it to be something that gives you kind of a taste for different places? What's been your experience with people trying to decide between those two? Any
A
thoughts on
great
that?
it's a great question. I I have always said to students, "Well, tell me more, like, what are you thinking?" "Why
Uh-huh.
do you wanna go abroad?" And if it's for a language, obviously, to learn a language, it makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
then to
Yeah.
maybe stay in one place or
Right.
stay or go to a place where, maybe there's 3 countries that all share the same language, right, or primary
Yeah.
language. So, obviously, that's a driving force. It says again about your why, like, what do you wanna get out of it? If they want to go to places they might never have gone before or won't go before, then I really let them think about semester at sea as one aspect because one of the things that to go abroad is that the amount of travel, where do you wanna go? Like, living on a
Uh-huh.
ship is really convenient because 'cause you're going to different places and stopping
Yeah.
off. So to think about that as well, and then the comparative education piece, if someone is interested in understanding maybe religions around different areas or the world or how they operate, how they're important to the people, and how they're part of the culture, and if you wanna learn about that, I think semester at sea can be extremely amazing. Like, that's what for
Mhm.
me the first thing that hit me in my 90 years ago experience, and I don't know about you, Steve, was this idea of learning about all these religions for me. That
Mhm.
was amazing.
Yep.
It opened doors. So for me, that was very special. So if people's why is broader than just
Yep.
one depth or one area or focus, then I think a semester at sea program is ideal. And that's what always drove me because I have a lot of interests and I
Yep.
like to understand the comparative piece of all those issues. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's funny that you mentioned sort of if you wanted to kind of understand or explore the religious aspect of the various places that you travel.
Mhm.
I remember arriving to the ship for our training to get ready for our voyage, and they
Mhm.
started running through the faculty members who were going to be on the ship teaching the classes.
Yeah.
And when I was an undergrad, I was very involved in lots of things around religion and whatnot.
Mm.
And so I took a lot of religion classes and I couldn't believe it. Like Dr. French, who was my religion professor at my undergrad, was on the ship
Oh
as
my
teaching
god.
religion. And so we got into so many good conversations about things that I had remembered talking about as an undergrad in the classroom. And we were sort of now venturing to these places. And he created a lot of excursions around some of that, which was really appreciated. So, you don't know sometimes what you might be stepping into. And I
Yes.
say this to people all the time. It's like, sometimes you just have to make a decision to go do something. And it might be outside of your comfort zone a little bit, but you never know where that decision is going to take you in ways that will kind of help you grow academically, or it might grow your friendship, your circle of friends, or so many things happen just because you make a decision and you kind of follow through on that to see where it goes. But yeah, that was really a kind of
It's
a
amazing. I
serendipitous
love that.
moment, which I really did love and enjoy that. So, where's the best way that you can advise students or maybe their parents that are trying to be helpful to kind of learn about? Because we're talking about semester C, because I think we both are anchored in that program.
Yes.
we have a great scholarship program that NSCS does for students who are our members who apply to do semester C. But there's so many programs now, and even academic institutions are offering programs that come right through where they actually currently are in school. Where do you go? Like, how do you find out about
Yeah.
the opportunities, and where's a good place to start?
Well, I would say, obviously, try to see if there's an office, at your university, that helps students find places. Sometimes it's called study abroad, education abroad, international scholars, sometimes there's international students, but sometimes they do broader work too with the study
Hmm.
abroad. So one is look at that. Two is I also think that your professors could be very helpful. Your
Yep.
faculty could be extremely helpful because some of the faculty, like you just mentioned, like on semester at C, some of these faculty are so well known and also so knowledgeable in a specific country or have experience internationally. They've internationalized their field. They've
Yep.
been growing in ways for them, so they might have ideas as well. And especially if it's someone that you really admire and it's an area you want to explore more, is talk to your faculty, find out more if they ever what is their experience internationally, what have they done, and what has made a difference for them. So I think that's a really good piece to find ways as well. And then possibly, in the department too, they might be doing short term, like in your degree program, like for
Hmm.
students that are just starting on college campuses. Steve, we know there's so much more opportunities now for short term experiences too that match the class, like kind of
Hmm.
what semester at sea does. The
Yep.
faculty member also does field classes when they get in the country. Well, that happens in our academic programs as well, increasingly. So
Yep.
a faculty member might teach a course. I don't know, we've been talking about religion, but let's move to marketing, or something
Right.
like
Right.
that. So
Yep.
there's a faculty member that's doing marketing, but they're taking students over to Hong Kong,
Right.
maybe as part of that experience before, after, or during the semester. So I think there's so many great opportunities. So for new students coming to universities, looking at that is different opportunities, Googling, finding ways. I know through student affairs, because this is what I do. So through my first experience after semester at sea, I wanted to keep learning more and I wanted to connect students to more opportunities as well co-curricularly. So over the years, I have brought students to international conferences. A lot of times, practitioners in student affairs in different parts of the world also bring student leaders. So I
Hmm.
was able to do that myself. So they should also, if they get really engaged co curricularly, look at that opportunity. Now I run a Student Leader Global Summit through the International Association of Student Affairs and Student Services. And for example, the next one will be in Hong Kong and it's hosted by another university. And professionals in student affairs can have students apply for the program. So I think there's so much opportunity for our students. So I guess I would say, Steve, I hope everyone can get a little piece of
Yep.
international education while they're in college. I truly believe in it. You and I didn't know that we could do that. It was a
Right.
different time now, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think I would always encourage students, and that is what I try to do as well.
Well, I think you and I have a very similar perspective on student affairs from the angle of it really revolves around student development
Yeah,
and wanting students to have a well rounded experience from the time that they spend in college. So the classroom time is obviously a priority, but a lot of times what happens outside the classroom is what creates the kind of connectivity and lifelong experiences. And what you just said, I think so many students really haven't given enough consideration to when it comes to faculty members. And the person teaching your class seems to, for a lot of students, they're like a tool in the toolbox that they have to kind of use because it's required, right? So they go to class and
yeah.
they do what they need to do in class, and then they hustle out of class and they don't always look at the person in the front of the room as a
Yes.
resource. And that person may be teaching marketing, for example, but if you were to spend a little more time with that faculty member, getting to know the faculty member, taking advantage of, office hours, you might
Yeah,
discover marketing is not even the number one priority or interest. They have done all of these other things that could be useful to you in your education experience, right? And the more I talk to students, and I talk to a lot of students, and I know you do too, when you bring up, like, how often do you interact with your faculty members? I'm always surprised. It's like, well, only as often as I have to, or only as often as I
no,
need to be in the classroom and all that stuff. So, really, if you want to do something, even if it's beyond study abroad, if you're thinking about, an experience that you want to have or find a path to doing something, think about your faculty member just as a sounding board. Have you ever done anything like this? Would you have any advice for me when I am trying to do this? Right. And I think faculty members, there's going to be some that are maybe a little curmudgeony, but I don't think most of them really are. I think they want to be in the classroom and they want to work with students. And I think they appreciate those opportunities to talk about more broad things than just what maybe they're teaching. So I do hope some people will take that to heart
I
and
agree.
go
I
in
hope
and
so.
tap their professor, right?
Yeah, and I think too, I guess because I was just on a ship with faculty 24/7, it's a little bit different. However, I'm I what you just said, I will echo. Please, interact with your faculty, find times outside of the classroom as well. Like you said, go to office hours. Uh, Maybe if they're involved in a club and advising a club that's part of, get to know them because I do think those moments are so special. And I wish I would have done more of it as an undergrad.
Mhm.
I did it in
Yeah,
graduate school, and that's another thing. Some of the audience might be thinking about graduate school. So
yeah,
practice now, get to know your faculty, because they're a
yeah.
great resource.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't realize it. Maybe if you're a first year student or a second year student, you're not thinking ahead because you're going to start thinking about graduate school. And then one of the things that you're going to realize is like, oh, I need a letter of recommendation from a faculty member. And I think the hardest thing for a faculty member to do sometimes is write those letters for students who they haven't ever really spent any time with beyond knowing that they sat through a class with them. And it doesn't mean that the students don't ask them for letters, even if they don't really know the faculty member that well. But your letter and the recommendation is going to be so much more thorough and robust if they can talk
Exactly.
about something that they helped you do or something that they helped you resolve. It's just going to mean more to support your application for whatever it is that you're thinking about. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I do think it's not thought about enough in terms of resources.
Yeah.
So back to if you're looking at your college campus, and I
Yeah.
don't think it matters if you're at a large institution or a small institution, there's going to be these offices that are there to support a lot of the programmatic things.
Mhm.
And so, do you have any thoughts? Because I have heard this from talking to students that sometimes you may land in the Office of Study Abroad or education abroad or however it might be called on your campus. And the folks there maybe haven't ever heard of the program that you're considering doing, or it's
Yes.
not something that they seem to know enough about to either advise you to do it or not do it, or sometimes even worse, they may just discourage you from doing it, even if they don't know enough about it to do that. Do you hear about that happening? And is there any advice for students that might be really interested in something but not getting the full support of the institution folks?
Yes. Yes, Steve, that is unfortunate, and it does happen, and it's not as encouraging. And I think sometimes it is just because they don't have the knowledge, which, so we can't always fault those that are there. But however, what I encourage students, and I've seen it a couple of times, I have seen it with Semester at Sea, and I've also seen it with other programs like volunteer programs. The student wants
Hmm.
to go and do a specific volunteer program or service program, and it might not be as supported. Possibly. I've seen it in other ways too. They have another idea of what they want to do, a student. They're
Right.
really passionate about what they want to do, and they might have heard about the program. So I think is one, is be persistent if this is really something you wanna do.
Hmm.
Be d be mindful and be organized in how you wanna do it, so it might take a little bit longer, if that
Yep.
makes sense. So, planning ahead, like, for example, I did have one student I was talking with on the ship that really they had to plan ahead and, really talk with them and educate their department about it because they didn't know about it.
Right.
But
Yep.
fortunately, the funniest thing that happened, and now I'm circling back to what we just talked about a faculty member. She mentioned to one of her faculty members just on a blue that I wanna do this program, and he's like, "I worked on it." Right? So
Right.
wild, right?
Right. That
So
is wild.
it was wild, so it was, like, meant to be, like, in some ways, got connected, and so that faculty member helped her a little bit. It didn't always help with the department, but helped her know what to do, who to talk with. So I think you also if that program you're really interested in, reach out to that program too as well, and, try to schedule some time to meet with them and talk with them about it, on what it is, and they know too how to help as well, and they can maybe help you. And believe it or not, like what you're doing, Steve, too, is so awesome because you're offering some scholarship too, because sometimes they think they can't afford it. And now
Yep.
almost every program has some monies available too that you might be of interested. Like for
Yep.
example, semester C, I've been given to it since 92 myself for
Yep.
scholarships for students, but there's other programs that have that as well. So don't so be but you have to plan ahead because when you
Yep.
need money to go with it, you have to plan ahead. So I think be persistent and plan and be organized. I think it could help. And then talk to others because you wouldn't believe it. Like I just said, people might be connected to that program or know someone that went on that program. Parents talking to
Mm.
parents.
Yep.
They say, "Oh, my daughter just told me about this program and I'm interested." And I see that happening too. So I think it's worth it if it's something you really want. At least that's what I heard from the students this semester at sea. And then in my previous life on a land campus, I've seen students coming back and say, "I am so glad I pushed it and did that
Yep.
program because it really is going to help me." And they would be able to tell you why. So,
Well, I think a lot of times those decisions get trapped in sort of the academic credit transferring and trying to make sure the semester that you're away, whether it's semester at sea or any international
anything.
abroad program, those are going to be the questions that your academic advisor would probably have to coordinate a little bit with the study abroad office to figure
That's
out. And sometimes, and I think semester at sea might fit into this a little more than others, but I could be wrong. Sometimes the best options might be for semester at sea that it sort of meets these elective credits, maybe more than it does for your hardcore major credits, which is maybe a little harder to do that on some of these opportunities that will be abroad, which might mean that, you as a student, there's always a cadence to the way I think higher ed works. And I think in my mind, if you're thinking about study abroad, it tends to be oftentimes your junior year because it kind of happens, you're sort of through your first 2 years and you go abroad for your junior year or part of that year, and then you come back for your senior year. But for some of these programs, if you're thinking ahead, along the lines that you're talking about, find the resources, ask the
yes.
questions, get people involved. Maybe you thinking about doing it a little sooner in your college experience could be a good way to check off those elective credits so that you don't take all your electives and now it's your junior year where you need to be in your hardcore major. And so this abroad program is going to be limited on that front. You could still do it, but it might not be for the benefit of your transcript academically that
I
way.
agree, and that's so true, and sometimes now, even semester at sea, it's a gap year, so some of our
Mhm.
students did gap year, and you're seeing that happen with other opportunities too. You go
Yep.
before, and what a growth experience, and some of those students are on the ship, the benefit, they met all these students from different universities, 180 different universities, and they could think about
Yep.
where they wanted to go, right? So
Oh, it's so funny. I'm glad you said that
yeah,
because we just had a conversation recently with semester at sea. I feel like we've turned this into a really big semester at sea conversation, but it just resonates well beyond semester at sea. I think all of these points, but they were telling us about the gap year opportunity
yeah,
for high school students that want to take a gap year. and sort of figure some things out. And, so we're looking for ways to help promote that through our high school program. And I think that's a really good idea a lot of times for students that might be on the fence about, do I do I want to go to college? Let's just start there. I
Mhm.
think people are
Mhm.
questioning that in a different way these days. And then if I think I want to go to college, do I want to go right away? Where do I want to go? What would I do to make it the most resourceful, spending my money the best possible way? Maybe it is go away on a study abroad or an abroad
Oh,
experience program and then see what kind of informs you about those decisions.
I
So,
agree.
so there on the program that you just returned from, there were students having this gap year moment.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes.
awesome. That's
And
so amazing.
it was amazing, and they received so much in return from it, not just a network, but just the learning and meeting faculty too, and thinking about what their interest is, and
Mhm.
again, because of the way the program is set up, they see faculty outside of the classroom more, so it goes back to what we were talking about. So we could circle back with this audience on what's important, right?
Right,
Getting to
right.
know your faculty, getting to know staff more, really building relationships and networks. So
Well, there is that happens too, when you're kind of doing a program and it's led by faculty members and
mhm,
others that work on college campuses, it does give you an appreciation for when you get back to your campus. Like, how do I find that person on my campus that, has that same attitude towards student
mhm,
support and helping me work through all these student kind of challenges or whatever.
mhm.
So there's
Yeah,
definitely that part. And for students in a gap year, I think that's great too, because um, like, even just thinking about the fact that there's a lot of students that wouldn't even maybe know that there's a study abroad office or there's a career services center or there's a counseling center. There's all of these resources that
I
exist
know.
on campuses to support students through this journey of college. But most of those kind of services don't work unless you show up and take advantage of them, right? Um,
Exactly.
and it just doesn't happen as much as I wish. So
Oh, I know. I That's a disappointment for me as a college administrator when I hear a student is not doing very well and they never reached out to any of the resources. So you're right. So just making sure that they're aware of all the support. And I would just add to one last thing too is, you know, growing and developing, you know, um, in student development, as we talk about in our field and how important it is in student affairs, it does happen before we go to college, before we
mhm,
make a decision at the universities. So having some experiences like a gap year, I'm a fan of gap year. That was nothing around when I was in college either. But the
right.
idea that you take time to think about what you want to do, whether it's an internship, it's a study abroad, it's a volunteer opportunity, whether it's domestic or international, I think these experiences allow you to grow and develop and help you before you're making decisions possibly. Even though
Yep.
you could change them, but I think some of these things that we're talking about are really good, um, ideas or practices for us to think about for our
Well, I
students.
know, like, we're kind of running up on
Mm.
the edge of our time. It goes by so fast, and I feel like there's, like I said, so many more things that we could touch on. Before we sort of wrap up, though, I'd like to go back and revisit the conference for student leaders that you were talking about,
Yes.
that you're a part of planning. That's going to be in Hong Kong. Um, how does that work to find out more about that? Like, if students are interested in that, like, what are the requirements, or where do you go
Sure.
to look that
Sure,
up?
sure,
Because I'd
sure.
love to make sure people know about it, and even we can promote it to our members generally at NSCS. So,
That would
how
be
does that
great.
work?
That would be great, Steve. Well, right now, a lot of it comes through our members that are, working in support services, whether it's called student affairs, student services, or student welfare in different parts of the world. So a lot of times they hear about it and they share it with the student leaders. But now that we've gone into our 7th or 8th year, now it also gets shared among the student leaders that have gone in the past. So
Mhm,
the idea is that, it is for student leaders to learn from each other. So these student leaders are already on a college campus,
mhm,
and they could apply for an opportunity to go. A lot of times, the funding does come through the university, at this point. And a lot of universities, and this is another thing I would say too, is they do offer, like, in different parts of the world, your student activity fee going towards experiences like this for students. So
Okay.
that's another way to get an international experience too, that if you're really involved in student leadership, sometimes there are monies to go on a experience like this, a short term. So anyway, a lot of times it comes from that. So our members then advertise it to our student leaders. I'll get it to you, Steve, too, because it
Sure.
does go broader. But all because of the International Association's mission is about international education and global awareness. Most of our student leader global summits are either around the SDGs, the Sustainability Development Goals for the United Nations, like we might have one around health and well-being, SDG 4. This one's about sustainable cities,
Hmm.
and this is SDG 11 and partnership goals. And so Hong Kong Hang Seng University is hosting us, and that's what that leader experience will be about. And then, of course, the networking. And we usually have, it's usually about 40 to 50 students, and
Yep.
they're usually from 12 to 15 different countries and or, different countries and then about 25 different universities. So we try to select people in different parts of the world to provide that learning experience that I've always valued early on in my career, that I want students to continue to have the opportunity to meet people from different parts of the world or different universities and so forth.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, congratulations on all the work that you've done to build that. That sounds like a super experience for everybody who participates. So I'm happy that we'll get to share that out and see if we can get some interest, which will be really good. And thank you so much for, again, spending some time and providing some really incredible scholar scoop that I think will help a lot of people, especially thinking about their international opportunities for academics. So, thank you, and I am always happy to see you, Lisa.
Oh, me too. So good to see you, Steve.
All right.